Welcome back to the Daily Poem here on the Close Reads Podcast Network. It is Seamus Heaney week, as I've mentioned a couple of times this week. The anniversary of his death was August 30th, and there's a new collection coming out called Seamus Heaney 100 Poems, or Seamus Heaney, I guess, 100 Poems. And it's got a number of poems selected by his family to sort of represent each of the different eras of his career. So this week I'm reading 4 poems from this collection. And the one that I want to read today is called Two Lorries. There's a lot going on formally in this poem. And so I'm going to go ahead and read it and then comment on that a little bit. And I think it represents nicely the creativity, I guess is the simplest way of putting it, of Seamus Heaney. It goes like this. Two Lorries. It's raining on black coal and warm, wet ashes. There are tire marks in the yard. Agnew's old lorry has all its cribs down, and Agnew the coalman with his Belfast accent sweet-talking my mother. Would she ever go to a film in Magherafelt? But it's raining, and he still has half the load to deliver farther on. This time, the load our coal came from was silk black, so the ashes will be the silkiest white. The Magherafelt via Tunbridge bus goes by. The half-stripped lorry with its emptied, folded coal bags moves my mother. The tasty ways of a leather-aproned coalman. And films, no less, the conceit of a coalman. She goes back in and gets out the black lead and emery paper. This 1940s mother, all business round her stove, half wiping ashes with a backhand from her cheek as the bolted lorry gets revved and turned and heads for Magherafelt in the last delivery. Oh, Magherafelt, oh, dream of red plush and a city coalman as time fast forwards and a different lorry groans into shot up Broad Street with a payload that will blow the bus station to dust and ashes. After that happened, I had a vision of my mother, a revenant on the bench where I would meet her in that cold floored waiting room in Magherafelt. Her shopping bags full up with shoveled ashes. Death walked out past her like a dust-faced coalman, refolding body bags, plying his load empty upon empty in a flurry of motes and engine revs. But which lorry was it now? Young Agnew's or that other, heavier, deadlier one, set to explode in a time beyond her time in Magherafelt? So tally bags and sweet-talk darkness, coalman. Listen to the rain spit in new ashes as you heft a load of dust that was Magherafelt, then reappear from your lorry as my mother's dreamboat coalman, filmed in silk white ashes. So there's a lot going on in this poem. There's a lot of history under the surface here. If you know much about Irish history, then you might know that in the second half of this poem is referencing some of that, some of the Troubles, I believe they're called, where Ireland has been torn apart. But this is a sestina, which means that there are 6 stanzas with 6 lines each, and the poem concludes with one 3-line stanza, and the final word of each line throughout the 6 stanzas are the same. So the 6 words are ashes, lorry, coalman, mother, Magherafelt, and load. And I'm sure that Magherafelt is a place name, which I'm probably butchering. I guess this is where having an Irish accent would be useful, right? So those 6 words then get rotated through, if you will, so that one of those words is always ending a line in each stanza. So each of those words has to get used once throughout the 6-line stanzas throughout the poem. So at least 6 times throughout the poem, and then whatever is used as the 3 final words in the final 3-line stanza. I recommend you look up what a sestina is if this is confusing to you. But it's clear here that Heaney is employing this form, very purposefully, very creatively, playfully almost. And that playfulness somehow makes the sort of tragic underpinnings to this poem that much more profound for me anyway. The stanzas run into each other. They're not distinct individual thoughts. There's a lot of enjambment from the 6th line of a stanza into the 1st line of the next one. It happens, I think, in every stanza but one that a new stanza begins with the conclusion of the previous line, the thought from the previous line. So that plays a little bit with our sense of time. And it's one of those poems that because of that, you have to read several times. So I'll do that here in just a second. But I think that this is a poem worth reading on Seamus Heaney Week because it is so attentive to forms and to the way that forms shape presentation of thought in poetry. He's allowing the form to guide him. He's not clearly isn't seeing it as a crutch. And I think that even though there are other forms that are perhaps more traditionally formal, this is an example of a form like a sestina being a guiding light for a poet, not a crutch nor a sort of imprisoning element. The form is what guides the presentation of thought in a really profound way. So Heaney is someone who's quite good at that. I wanted to share this one with you. I'll read it one more time. To Lorries. It's raining on black coal and warm, wet ashes. There are tire marks in the yard. Agnew's old lorry has all its cribs down, and Agnew the coalman with his Belfast accent sweet-talking my mother. Would she ever go to a film in Magherafelt? But it's raining, and he still has half the load to deliver farther on. This time the load our coal came from was silk black, so the ashes will be the silkiest white. The Magherafelt via Tombridge bus goes by. The half-stripped lorry with its emptied, folded coal bags moves my mother, the tasty ways of a leather-aproned coalman, and films no less the conceit of a coalman. She goes back in and gets out the black lead and emery paper, this 1940s mother all business round her stove, half wiping ashes with the backhand from her cheeks as the bolted lorry gets revved and turned and heads for Magherafelt and the last delivery. Oh, Magherafelt. Oh, dream of red plush and a city coalman as time fast forwards and a different lorry groans into shot up Broad Street with a payload that will blow the bus station to dust and ashes. After that happened, I had a vision of my mother, a revenant on the bench where I would meet her in that cold-floored waiting room in Magherafelt, her shopping bags full up with shoveled ashes. Death walked out past her like a dust-faced coalman, refolding body bags, plying his load empty upon empty in a flurry of motes and engine revs. But which lorry was it now? Young Agnew's or that other, heavier, deadlier one, set to explode in a time beyond her time in Magherafelt? So tally bags and sweet-talk darkness, coalman. Listen to the rain spit in new ashes as you heft a load of dust that was Magherafelt. Then reappear from your lorry as my mother's dreamboat coalman, filmed in silk white ashes. This has been the Daily Poem. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow with one more Seamus Heaney poem.